What is going on, everybody? I'm AJ, and I'm going to give you guys the UFC Vegas 21 breakdown. But before doing that, there's two things I'd like to bring to your attention. Very, very helpful, I think, for you. One of them is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a brand new thing to the daily fantasy industry. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy site to allow you 100% instant deposit bonus for up to $100. You could use the promo code AJ100, that is AJ100, for 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100 at prizepicks.com. Link in the description below. Prize Picks is sort of just like a daily fantasy site unlike any other. It is unlike any other. It is an entry. You input your entry for an over-under on the projection that Prize Picks makes. So in other words, there's no mass multi-entry, there's no sharks, there's no fish, there's no optimizers. It's just a fantasy prop, a pick'em game, if you will. So straightforward. Again, you don't have to worry about if you're one of those people, you don't have access to all those, say, like, high-level DFS sources. You don't have to worry about all that because it's just you versus a projection. So Prize Picks, description below, AJ100 for 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. It's available in most geographic areas, across North America. I couldn't get it out before I wanted to say it. Other thing is RotoWire. RotoWire 10-day free trial offer available in the link below. RotoWire is a site that obviously I contribute to, but even before I contributed to RotoWire, I was still using their DFS tools. I was notified of the free 10-day trial, and I'm like, let me just give this a shot. I was one of those people that was opposed to using DFS sources because I'm like, why do I need to spend money on this? Why I could just do my own research. I could stay up to date on the injuries. But it's so much simpler. It saves you time. It saves you stress. It's just easier, just paying not that much, just a few bucks for all this sort of DFS content, projections, value plays, optimizers. Literally, I'm making my NBA lineups, and I make them like 20 minutes before lineups lock. So I don't have to do all this searching throughout the day. I don't have to stress about it. Literally 20 minutes before lineups lock, I go to RotoWire, I make my lineups, and then because everything's updated ahead of time. Obviously with a sport like NBA or even MLB, there's injuries constantly flying all over the place, and it could be hard to keep track of it. But RotoWire does it all that for you. So yeah, RotoWire, awesome 10-day free trial offer, guys. So you could try it, and if you don't like it, then so be it. But I think it's worth a shot if you're one of those people that, again, loves to play DFS, but say doesn't have all that time to sort of, follow the injuries, do your own projections, that sort of things. Just super, super simple, guys. So those are two things that I like to bring to your attention. This isn't just me reading some random ad. These are things that I think are very, very helpful, things that I believe in for the long run. So that's why I want to bring them to your attention. So now we're here to talk about, obviously, UFC Vegas 21. Super, super exciting card, guys. Obviously we're coming off a pay-per-view event, so we're back to the fight night routine, which is great. I mean, I still love fight nights regardless. Edwards versus Muhammad, interesting headliner. We had this sort of scheduling, this back and forth with Edwards potentially facing Chimaev. Then we've got Chimaev is, unfortunately, he's been sick, he's been recovering. So now we have Belal Muhammad stepping in here basically on short notice, though I don't think that's the most compelling thing about the stylistic matchup is Muhammad has been much more active than Edwards. We have not seen Leon Edwards since July 2019, which is something to note. We'll talk about the stylistic matchup as well, but yeah, just a very intriguing main event. We've got the return of Manel Kape. It's always entertaining when he's in there. And yeah, we got some prospects. We got some veterans on this card, a little bit of everything. So let's just get right down to business, shall we? We've got the first fight of the night, Jason Witt and Matheus Semelsberger. I do like Semelsberger in the matchup. I like that he's got more reach on Witt, and I think he's more durable. Witt, I think his best skill set is grappling. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He's got a power double leg. He works with James Krause, which is awesome. Semelsberger has shown enough grappling chops where I think he's probably good enough to keep the fight standing for extended periods of time. Semelsberger is a very high-level athlete, a former NCAA Division I football player. From my research, it seemed like he was an NFL hopeful at one point. And Witt has been rocked in several fights, rocked and finished. We saw just in his UFC debut against Takashi Sato, he was knocked out in under a minute there. I kind of think Semelsberger has the potential to do the same. I mean, I like Semelsberger's variety as a striker. I like his combinations. He did slow down in that UFC debut against Minus, but UFC debut on short notice, it's understandable. He looks like a pretty solid talent, though, does Semelsberger, as does Witt. But really, I think the reach advantage for Semelsberger, 5 inches here, I'm looking at per Tapology. And the durability of Witt is really, it's a really huge question mark in my opinion. It might just take one big shot from Semelsberger on the feet. So a fight that should be contested on the feet, I favor Semelsberger's reach is obvious. That's not something I could even debate. That's just a fact. His better durability. He's a more powerful striker, faster striker as well with more variety, I'd say. So Matheus Semelsberger is going to be my pick, but no bet for me because I don't really see that there's like this huge skill discrepancy between either of them. And like we talked about, they're just not that very experienced in the UFC. So just a complete pass for me. Get a kick back and enjoy it. Which is just something I want to note right away. This is a card where I'm not crazy about betting, to be honest. We'll talk about this fight where I have a bet, but really it's just not this card where I'm like, I'm so crazy about it from a betting perspective, to be honest. And that's okay. I mean, I still enjoy the event without any action on it, but that's just the way it's got to be. My first instinct actually, when doing this sort of tape study routine is to pass. I almost need to convince myself a lot of the times to, hey, maybe we should talk ourselves into a bet here upon doing the research and analysis. But this card in particular, I agree with most of where these odds are. If I do think that there's some value on the money line for one fighter, I think it's a higher variance enough of a fight to where I don't want to place the bet. And I'm okay with that decision at the end of the day. I don't regret passing, again, because it could go, it evens out in the long run. There's these spots where, I pass on them and it turns out that the bet that I would have made there would have cashed, but then there's other times where it doesn't happen. So I don't want to get caught up in this whole woulda, shoulda, coulda type of trap. I just want to make my decisions and then on to the next thing, basically. So as it pertains to this matchup, Jinh, Frey, and Gloria, de Paula. I do like de Paula in the matchup. She should be the more physical fighter here. I think she's physical for the standards of the strawweight weight class. Whereas we've seen Frey, she used to fight at 105, actually, atomweight. She fought in Invicta, but obviously the UFC does not have a 105-pound weight class, so by default, she fights at strawweight. De Paula is also, as we can see here on Tapology, 10 years younger, roughly. She is a woman who, coming off the Contender Series, I thought her performance was solid. She struggled a little bit early on with the takedown attempts from a judo practitioner. Frey has shown some solid grappling chops, particularly like her scrambling ability. She showed off a very good slick transition in taking Loma Lookboonmee's trap. But to be honest with you, I think de Paula's better physicality. I think she's a much more dangerous submission grappler. From guard, de Paula looks to control posture and attack with submissions. As I was saying, though, she does train with Charles Oliveira. She does train with Mayra Bueno Silva, which I think is great. And she's kind of fights similar to Mayra, at least on the feet. She'll walk you down. She's fearless. She throws hard and she throws often. She's got a little bit of a reach on Frey. I think she's more dangerous on the feet than Frey. I think she's more varied of a striker. Frey was pretty much just throwing the right hand last bout. She wasn't really setting it up. She was mostly throwing it blind, which is interesting considering that wasn't really a matchup on paper where she had to worry about takedowns. Whereas in the past, say, she would, utilize leg kicks. She would get off on her combos, but Frey's just a fighter that's very low output on the feet. So I think that de Paula, having the higher output, having the more powerful shots, having the more variety as a striker, I think that should help her win the aggregate of the exchanges and also the clinch exchanges as well. I really like de Paula's clinch game. Also similar to Mayra, good head positioning, wrist control offensively, hard knees, hard elbows, just a lot of damage. Same thing with Mayra Bueno Silva that we saw not too long ago. She just good technically, good positionally, but also just inflicts the damage really well. We saw Loma Lookboonmee get off on a lot of damaging strikes in the clinch against Frey. And I know Loma's an excellent Muay Thai practitioner, but I think Gloria is too. She utilizes that Muay Thai clinch as well. So I like what I see out of her. I think she gets her UFC debut is a win. And to be honest with you, I think she's only going to get better. I mean, like we say, she's 25. She trains with Charles Oliveira. She trains with Mayra Bueno Silva, two UFC level fighters for sure. And I like her skill set. She's fairly well rounded. The takedown defense is probably the biggest concern that I have going forward. But she's really physical, and she does, in open space, she did, she struggled with the takedowns early in that Contender Series fight, but as that fight went on, she did a good job of getting her hips back. She's athletic. She could sprawl reasonably well. So I don't think that the takedown defense is going to be an issue, say, in this fight. But I do think she wins, and that is my bet on her. I bet 2 units on de Paula, 2 units at minus 170. I think she should be at the minus 170 or in other words, the minus 233, 70% category. So I do see some value on that line. Jonathan Martinez and Davey Grant. I think Grant's got to get this fight to the ground and kind of hold Martinez there. We've seen Martinez takedown defense be an issue a bit in the past, but I think it's gotten better. And I don't think Grant's like a great wrestler grappler. He doesn't really set up his takedowns. He didn't exactly dominate the grappling against Martin Day. He won those exchanges, but he's not exactly been a dominant grappler. In fact, Davey Grant has been submitted in all of his UFC losses, right? He got submitted by Manny Bermudez, Chris Holdsworth, and Damian Stasiak. So it's not like he's this overwhelmingly dominant grappler. So I think he's going to struggle to take down and control Martinez. So we're going to get this fight, I think, mainly contested on the feet, where Martinez is just better, I think. I think he's better defensively. Grant tends to enter the pocket with his hands down and his head on the center line, and as a result, we saw him countered and hurt by Martin Day. It's just a bad tendency. Grant moves just so much, but it's almost like he's got so much energy that he just doesn't know what to do with it. He just is just so random. He just like almost he throws himself at you basically. So Martinez, I think, is a better technical striker. He utilizes various kicks at range. Doesn't throw his boxing with the most frequency, but he does get off on those kicks to the body, to the leg. Factory X Muay Thai. We see all those guys utilize the calf kick. So I think Martinez has got him covered, to be honest with you, on the feet. And that's why he's such a big favorite. And just like every other fight that we'll talk about on this card, that fight to me is a pass from a betting perspective. Charles Jourdain and Marcelo Rojo. Jourdain is a guy I thought turned a corner after during that Andre Fili fight. He fought with much more composure, and despite losing that fight, I thought that was probably his best performance in the UFC, to be honest. He's a guy, though, that I just feel like he kind of prioritizes being a showman rather than going out there and trying to win rounds. Don't get me wrong, he's good at it. He throws a flying knee. He's got spinning attacks, but that leaves him open to counters. That means that he's wild. We saw him rocked in his most recent fight against Joshua Kulabau. We saw him rocked against Doo Ho Choi. He's not exactly the most defensively responsible guy for 15 minutes when he doesn't want to. Now, again, he has shown one fight where he has fought with composure, and I think that is encouraging. He's still very young. He's going to get better. But I would like to see more consistency out of Jourdain before I say consider betting him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I had a bet on Andre Fili against him, but, and I was definitely sweating that fight going into the cards. But, man, I would really like to see more consistency out of Jourdain, to be honest. But as it pertains to this matchup, I think he's a much better submission grappler. I know he hasn't shown the most willingness to go for takedowns, but if this fight hits the ground and these two tangle, I think he's better than Rojo there. Jourdain's also just much more tested at a UFC level. We've seen him fight in the UFC a few times against high-level competition. Andre Fili, Doo Ho Choi, Desmond Green. Whereas Rojo here just – he's been fighting most of his career on the regional scene. I just think Jourdain has more upside as a fighter. So Charles Jourdain is going to be my pick for the matchup. Hani Yahya and Ray Rodriguez. This is they both kind of throw with reckless abandon on the feet. Rodriguez has a bit of reach on Yahya, but where the difference maker here is the grappling. Hani Yahya is a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, an ADCC medalist. And Rodriguez, I wouldn't say he's a bad defensive grappler, but, he's been submitted in some of his losses. He was back-mounted and finished by Tony Gravely on the Contender Series, finished via guillotine quickly against Brian Kelleher. And I've seen him taken down easily, again, referring to that fight against Tony Gravely on the Contender Series. So, I think he's got the wrestling to get this fight to the ground, and from there he should be able to probably take the back. He's very slick at taking the back, a very good scrambler is Hani Yahya, and probably get a submission, I think, early. The concern with Yahya is his age. He's now 36. He made his pro debut in 2002, so he might be at the end of his career. Just if you want to go back to just last event, we saw a similar circumstance with that. Joseph Benavidez and then Dominic Cruz, right? We had I personally had kind of similar concerns for both of those guys. One guy went out there and lost fairly comfortably, and then the other guy, Cruz, even though split decision, he still put on a good performance. Joe B, Benavidez, I feel like if he was closer to his prime, even if he, say, maybe didn't beat Askarov in that matchup, he would have made it more competitive than the scorecard showed that night, if that makes sense. So again, it's one of those things. What I'm trying to say here, though, is I'm throwing that out there because it's something that I have concern for Yahya. It's enough for me to not bet him at this line. It's been a year since we've last seen him in the octagon, so we'll see exactly what happens. I think stylistically it's a good fight for him, but it's just a matter of how much does does Yahya have left? And again, going off that Barzola fight, even though it was a draw, he did have some early success in rounds 1 and 2. He showed me enough there to where I think he probably has this fight. He probably should get a quick finish. His flaw has always been his cardio, has Yahya. But if he goes out there and gets a quick finish, he doesn't have to worry about that, right? Cortney Casey and JJ Aldrich, very close fight, I think. I favor Aldrich because I think she's a more technical striker with better footwork, who's more defensively sound. But this is a very competitive fight. I mean, Aldrich doesn't exactly pull away in fights. She never really dominates. And Casey, on the flip side, tends to fight very competitively as long as you're not taking her down and controlling her for all 3 rounds like we saw Jillian Robertson do. Cortney Casey's got a win over Angela Hill, Randa Marcos. I mean, she throws with a lot of volume, does Casey. And again, even though I don't think she's the more technical striker here, I think she hits harder and she's got better volume. So that's enough to where I wouldn't be shocked to see us go to the scorecards and see the sort of 50-50 split decision type of fight. So despite me picking Aldrich, I just don't see any value on her money line. And on the flip side, if you're not familiar with my sort of betting philosophy, I don't bet underdogs unless if I cap them as favorites. And I see value on the betting line. That's just my philosophy that I like to adapt. I'm not saying that that's a right or wrong way to do it. I'm just trying to tell you for transparency's sake, that is what I do. So my pick is going to be JJ Aldrich, but no bet for me there. Eryk Anders and Darren Stewart to kick off the main card. They're both similar fighters, to be honest. They're both very low output, mainly because they don't do a whole lot at range. I mean, Stewart does throw the jab sometimes, not often, but he does do it sometimes. He does throw kicks. Occasionally he's got a hard low kick, but not often. They're both kind of successful in the pocket, in flurries. Anders has always been very low output. That's kind of been a big thing why that's held him back in his career. You know, he's not a high output guy. He doesn't really have any tools at range. He'll just kind of walk forward, spam a combo, 1-2 followed by a high kick, and then just clinch up with you against the fence. He doesn't wrestle often. The Matheus Santos fight was really the only one where we saw him go out there and persistently wrestle. He's not a good technical wrestler as Anders, even though he's a very strong guy and physical athlete. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. Stewart's grappling overall has improved a lot. He's a decent wrestler. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. So I think we're going to see a fight that's contested on the feet where, again, I think it's close because it's like they're both physical athletes. They're both fast. But I guess Stewart is just slightly busier, but it's not like this fight where I think Stewart's going to be so much busier than Anders. I mean, Stewart's got this tendency of closing the distance pretty recklessly, ducking his head and just throwing overhands. And I mean, yeah, he's been able to take shots because he's got a good chin and everything, and he's really tough. But it's not, in terms of actually placing a bet on him, it's just not something that I feel great about. I actually think Anders has a clear path to victory here in terms of the clinch exchanges. We saw Stewart controlled in the clinch by Maki Bitolo, a guy that has fought at 170 pounds in the past. We saw him controlled by Kevin Holland as well. And Anders is a big guy. He has fought at 205 in the past. I think that will be Anders's path to victory, get the clinch and control Stewart. But we see with these judges' scorecards, you got to do damage, right? You got to do damage. And I think that the fighter doing slightly more damage over the course of 3 rounds is going to be Darren Stewart. So Darren Stewart's going to be my pick. All right, and then we've got Matheus Nicolau and Manel Kape. Very interesting fight. Nicolau returning to the UFC. It was a little interesting that they cut him after the Ortiz loss. He was looking like a solid prospect. It was around the same time when the UFC was considering removing the flyweight division. So I guess it makes sense. But yeah, it's a fight where I think Nicolau's better on the feet. I think he's more technical. I think he's got better defense. He keeps his hands high. He has good head movement. He's a better technical striker. He's got hard low kicks. He likes to fight methodically on the outside and counter strike. And Kape does stand heavy on that lead leg on times, and he does keep his hands low. So it's a fight where Nicolau's the better technical striker on the feet. But we saw in that Ortiz fight, he got knocked down from a blocked high kick, and then he was knocked out. Kape is very athletic, fast, and hits hard. I wouldn't be shocked to see him land the knockout shot here. I wouldn't also be shocked to see Kape just have a better showing than he did in that UFC debut. He was very, very tentative there. And on his rise in regional footage, he was fairly tentative there as well, but I wouldn't say it was that low as he showed against Pantoja. So I think that there's just a chance that we see a better Kape here. But why I like Nicolau a little bit more is because his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage on the ground. I don't think he's a great wrestler. He does have sweeps, but if he does end up in top position on Kape, I think that could be trouble for Kape. It's part of the reason why I bet Pantoja against Kape. I just think once you put Kape on his back, he tends to get his guard pass. He tends to get controlled, and he's been finished on the ground, if not nearly finished in some of his decision losses, like the Sasaki fight. So I edge Nicolau here, but I don't feel like great about it. It is a dog or pass matchup, though I am going to be passing. Next, we've got Angela Hill and Ashley Yoder. Similar to the first time we talked about it. I mean, I think Hill's just much better on the feet in a fight that should be contested there. She's more technical. She has better footwork. She's better defensively and has better volume. Since the Randa Marcos fight, Hill's defensive grappling has looked a lot better, right? A lot better. Even when she's gotten taken down, she's done a good job of controlling the oppositions to where they don't land significant damage on her. Like, for instance, Claudia Gadelha took her down in round 1, didn't really get much damage off. Same thing against Michelle Waterson, took her down in round 3 after stuffing like 10 takedown attempts, didn't really get much damage off. So, I mean, I like Yoder. I mean, I bet her against Miranda Granger, but I just think that this is a matchup where she's going to really struggle if she can't get it to the ground. And I do think that generally Hill has good enough takedown defense to keep the fight standing, where she's got the much better striking. In addition to the technical advantages, she's got much better volume, I think, and she should be able to win the fight comfortably there. An interesting prop I'm looking for this fight is Hill wins by decision. I got that the first time around -160. I'm interested to see if they open it around there again. Going to be monitoring that. But that is one of really the only additional bets I'm looking at for this card. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'll just be looking out for it and make the decision once that gets released. Dan Ige and Gavin Tucker. I love both these guys. I've made money betting on them in the past. Tucker in his most recent fights against Jinh, against Quarantillo, Ige against Danny Henry, and also Kevin Aguilar. And if you want proof of that, you could just check my third-party tracked and verified record. The way I see it is Tucker's just more technical on the feet. I think he's got a bit more variety as a striker as well. He's more defensively sound. But Ige's got 5 inches of reach. I think he's more durable, hits harder, and has ever-improving striking. He showed really good countering ability in that Cater fight. So even though I favor Tucker on the feet, I could easily see Ige just winning based on those advantages. Tucker, he was dropped there by Justin James, despite winning that fight in the first round. And James gassed. I don't think Ige has great cardio either, but he's been 5 rounds. I mean, I think he's got better cardio than James. We also saw Tucker hurt by Glenn. I mean, this is a matchup where, I mean, a lot of people were pointing to, and I had concerns for it too, the Glenn fight, but this is a fight where I think it's just a big test for Tucker. And I am picking him to win, but this is a massive step up in competition, right? Billy Quarantillo, I think he's a good fighter and everything, but Dan Ige has been fighting guys like, Calvin Kattar, Edson Barboza, Mirsad Bektic. Like, it's a huge step up for Tucker. So I think most likely he passes, but this is just a fight where I'm going to kick back and enjoy. I think it's higher variance. The thing that makes me nervous about Ige is just his tendency, his willingness to be on his back. He'll just kind of lay there, like in round 2 against Jordan Griffin. He's almost submitted there by Mirsad Bektic in round 2. It's just like this weird tendency Ige has of like losing round 2, and then he'll come back and have a valiant effort in round 3. It's just another element to the cardio concerns that I have about him. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Gavin Tucker here, but I'm just going to kick back and enjoy it. It should be a fun fight. Ben Rothwell and Phillipe Lins. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I side with Rothwell here. I think he's more durable and he hits harder. He's also more UFC tested. Lins is a guy that I bet against Boser. I didn't see the fight going like that, but it happened. I just don't know how durable Lins is. Like, Boser's not a huge power puncher. He was knocked out there. He's also been finished in other fights as well, rocked. Lins is just very, very low output. Rothwell is generally too, though he did come out hot there against Tybura last time. It caused him to gas. But yeah, it's just a fight I really don't want anything to do with from a betting perspective, even though I'm siding with Rothwell. It's not like I see him as like 60% or 70%. I think it's more like 55%. So there's just not enough value on his line for me to bet. And it's just not a fight I want to bet in general, regardless of the odds. I mean, I'll just kick back and enjoy it. We'll see what happens. I think Ben Rothwell pulls it off, though. Misha Cirkunov and Ryan Spann. Basically, the way I see this fight is another higher variance one where, like, Cirkunov is better everywhere, I think. I think he's a better striker. He's more technical. He's got better footwork, more defensively sound. And I think he's a better grappler. But, I mean, you could argue that, all these guys that Cirkunov is losing to in the UFC, he's better than too. I think he's probably better than Oezdemir. I think he's better than Walker. And this might surprise some, but I think he's better than Teixeira on paper. It's just, the adversity factor. The Oezdemir fight was so interesting. I mean, I think Oezdemir just hit him behind the ear, and then it just hit him in like the sweet spot, and it knocked him out. And then the Walker fight was like a knee, and then he kind of covered up. But the Teixeira fight is interesting because Cirkunov is a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, but similar to Tom Breeze, when you put him on his back, he has this tendency of shelling. Like, he just doesn't want to control posture. He doesn't really – I mean, he did look to sweep against Crute, but it just seems like he's kind of confused. Like, I don't know how to say it. And so that gives me concern, even though I think he's a better grappler than Spann, a better wrestler. If Spann just ends up in top position one time or just hits him with a big punch that discourages Cirkunov, the pendulum of this fight could easily swing. So I'm going to side with Cirkunov because I think he's a better fighter, and it is an encouraging sign that against Crute, he did weather an early storm and swept Crute and got a Peruvian necktie finish. That's a great win, especially in hindsight. But it's just a fight I don't want any part of because at the end of the day, I've been on these spots so many times where I think one fighter is better than the other, but they have this tendency of when the adversity hits it, they really struggle. And again, I know it's encouraging that Cirkunov went out there and did his thing against Crute last time out, but he still almost did get finished there. The ref was warning him to fight back. I just don't like that tendency that he has of just covering up and shelling. So I'm going to side with Cirkunov, but it is a hesitant pick. I really do think he's like a top 5 heavyweight talent. It's just, unfortunately, he's just got some losses where it may not look like that to the naked eye, I guess. Main event. Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad, very, very good fight. Kudos to Belal Muhammad. The hard work pays off. He's stepped up so many times, and now he gets his big shot, right? I mean, this is a huge opportunity against one of the best welterweight contenders, in my opinion. I bet Edwards against Gunnar Nelson. I bet him against RDA. Haven't bet him at any other spot. I'm higher on him than the market, I'd say. I think the odds are about right. I don't see any value in the line, and also I just got to take into consideration just the fact that he hasn't fought since June of 2019, right? Muhammad's been much more active. That said, I think Edwards, going along with the odds point, I think he's a better fighter. I think he's more technical on the feet, fights better at range. I think he's the bigger finishing threat here. And I just think he's also just much more proven, right? He's got wins over Vicente Luque, Rafael dos Anjos, Gunnar Nelson. Belal's got some impressive wins. Like, he has a very good win over Lyman Good. But Edwards' resume is just a bit better in my opinion. And skill set wise, I think he's a better fighter here. So this is a fun fight. I think Muhammad is going to put up a really good fight. He's got great cardio. He's a very well-rounded fighter, but I think that the better athlete, the more skilled fighter here is Leon Edwards. So Leon Edwards is going to be my pick. If you guys don't already know, I'm actually going to attach my picks in the description of this video below, just in case if for whatever reason it wasn't clear in the video. But yeah, that'll conclude this breakdown for UFC Fight Night. Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards. If you guys, I would really appreciate it if you guys would give me a follow on Twitter at AJ_SCHULLO. Please feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please feel free to give this video a thumbs up, and please feel free to leave a nice comment if you do so choose. All my bets are third-party tracked and verified. If you like to get my bets for this event, the written breakdown with the Puebla bet, it's more in depth than what I went over here. You could subscribe to the mailing list on my website, ajmmabetting.com. Just subscribe to the mailing list. It's totally for free. And then upon a subscription, you'll receive 2 email automations, one saying, thank you for subscribing, and another saying all the bets that I have for this event and any future events that I have going up until April with the breakdowns as well. So that's good stuff with the mailing list. You get that content, you get this content, you get everything else that I produce within this realm. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and have a nice day. Good luck on the event.